Hey everybody, this is Saad. I've got a real superhero with me today, or at least one who plays that on television. I've got Superman, Dean Cain. How are you doing, sir?
I'm fantastic. I'm honored to be here. I'm a big fan, and I actually bought your book, The Parasitic Mind. I haven't had a chance to read it yet because it's the Kindle version. That's all I can get.
Oh, why is that? You mean hopefully
There
they
was no,
sold out?
yeah. There's no. I can't get another book. I can only get the Kindle version for now, and I
Oh,
don't usually read on a Kindle, so I'm gonna read it on my computer.
oh, wonderful. Before we got on when we were speaking offline, I said, hey, let's just address each other in a very informal way because I had noticed that your level of etiquette and politeness is so endearing. It comes from another era, and I think your explanation was you used to be, of course, a football player and a police officer now, and so you're used to sort of addressing people with that kind of respect. But I thought that all police officers were Nazis, so I'm kind of confused.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a disconnect there. Listen, in any group of people, you're going to find some folks that are, it's a cliche to say bad apples, but in any football team, in any group of people, there'll be some people who act a little bit differently. But by and large, all of the officers that I know are there to protect and serve. They're fantastic people, and the way we've gotten and demonized in the media and other places, police officers, and the way people are being taught to disrespect them and not comply, and that they're Nazis and all of these things is terrible. Now, I've seen some horrible instances, even in Canada, where police officers had to come in and do things that as an officer myself, I would have a really difficult time performing that task. And I would have a real problem doing that, and I would feel horrible doing so. And I would try to explain that to people if I was having to enforce something that I felt was unconstitutional or wrong. Fortunately, we have a different set of standards here in the United States regarding privacy and constitutionality of rights and things of that nature. So, but I hate to see what's going on these days with the police officers. It's why I joined up. It's why I wear the uniform and stand with my brothers and sisters in blue. Without security, without that idea that your family is going to be safe, there's someone to call. You can't call Superman; he's not going to show up. You can call a police officer, and they will show up. And by and large, they're fantastic.
When did you sign up? I mean, it's pretty recently, right? It's not something that you did when you were 22 years old, right?
It's probably been. I probably have been an officer now for 3 or 4 years. 4 years.
And what does it mean to be a reserve officer? That means they only call you if they're short on numbers, or what does that mean exactly?
It means I have to do a certain number of hours per year at the department, a certain amount of training, and a certain amount of schoolwork and text work, and go through. There's always updates to training and things of that nature. So I have to go through all of that stuff, and then I do my hours with my chief and with my other reserve officers, whether it's training or patrol or outreach, whatever it happens to be. And I'm in 2 different departments. I'm also a sheriff's deputy in Frederick County, Virginia. And so I'll be back and forth to both departments and sort of spreading the good word, if you will.
Wow. What was, I mean, obviously it's a calling for you. It's something that compels you to do this. You don't need to do this at, I guess you're in your 50s, if you don't mind me saying, a bit younger than me. So obviously it's something very, within you that caused you to do it. What is it? Walk us through why you chose to do this at this stage in your life.
Well, honestly, it's I have a great respect for our military and our men and women in uniform and those who fight for those who cannot fight, protect the rights of those who can't do it. There's a picture, a photo of a gentleman behind me is Chris Kyle. He was a Navy sniper. They made the film American Sniper about him, and Chris was a very good friend of mine and someone who I had tremendous respect for. And one day we were sitting around and he was talking to a police officer, and he said, "You know what? In so many ways, your job as a police officer is much more difficult than my job as a Navy SEAL. I know I'm going to a war and I'm fighting bad guys. Every single stop, when you pull someone over, you don't know what you're getting into. You have no idea. You get a domestic call, you don't know what you're walking into, and they're walking into the most dangerous places all the time." So to listen to Chris talk to my friend Tom that way, it really made me think, there's more that I can be doing myself. And then it was not too long after that sort of this anti-police rhetoric started. And I decided that I wanted to throw my lot in with the men and women in blue and explain. It was a very unpopular choice, but I thought it was the right thing to do.
You mean within your family it was unpopular?
it was unpopular in my profession, in Hollywood, to go and support, the blue and that's even though the biggest blockbuster films, and they're always police officers, always people with weapons and doing the right thing, and in real life people aren't doing that. Well, police officers are every single day. So within my family also, I met with pretty strong resistance because my family wants me to be safe.
Yeah.
They don't like me out there. They also don't want me to be a target if I'm out there expressing a point of view that makes a lot of people not like me or want to target me. And so my mother in particular wanted me to not do that, and she doesn't like when I go to do my time. Sometimes I don't tell her. I just tell her I'm traveling, going to do this, and then I come back. But it makes my mother nervous because police officers are in harm's way every single day. Although she respects the heck out of what I'm doing, as do all the members of my family, they also feel a bit of trepidation in that I would be in a bad situation and possibly be injured or killed, like every police officer every single day.
I got to tell you, I receive, many letters from all sorts of people from around the world. And the ones, they all bring me great pleasure because it's so nice. As you would when someone loves your work. Every single one brings me great pleasure and sense of gratitude and so on. But some of the ones that I appreciate the most are those that come from military folks, from police officers, from corrections officers, because that to me, there's a realness there, right? Like my message is not resonating with 7, highfalutin Ivy League. I'm a fellow Ivy Leaguer. I got my MS and PhD at Cornell. And I was going to joke with you. Of course, you went to Princeton because you couldn't get into Cornell. It makes perfect sense. By the way, when Cornell used to play Princeton in hockey, the chants of Cornell to taunt the Princeton players was "Princeton's in New Jersey." Princeton's.
Well, they got a point. That's it's Ithaca. So
yeah. But anyways, I love those folks that write to me because, to me, it suggests that I'm doing something right. If only history professors at Stanford are writing to me to say how much they appreciate my work, then I'm not doing a good job. But if a corrections officer in Pennsylvania writes to me and says, "I'm consuming all your stuff. I bought this book," I'm like, okay, I think I'm on the right track here. So hats off to you for joining the force.
Well, hats off to you for reaching your everyday people. Obviously, you could speak in a way, and I've read some of your work. It takes me a minute sometimes to read it over again because you're very intelligent and you speak in a way that your sentences are thick sometimes, and you have to go through them a couple times to really understand. And the fact that you can do that and still make your point, and your corrections officer in Pennsylvania is reading that and understanding it, and you, the regular person, can understand you, I think that's a credit to you. I'm a big fan of, as a writer, of Ernest Hemingway.
Sure.
I love Ernest Hemingway, his writing. I think it's fantastic. It's brilliant. F. Scott Fitzgerald went to Princeton, and there's so many people who love F. Scott Fitzgerald's writing. I can't read F. Scott Fitzgerald because he walks into a room and describes the room for 17 pages. I don't care.
Try to read French novels of the turn of the 20th century. They'll spend 16 pages just discussing the dew on the grass.
See, I can't do that. I want Ernest Hemingway, and I like his style.
Yeah.
He walks in and goes, "The guy at the bar was fat." Okay.
Boom. But by the way, I think, just to kind of draw a segue to politics, I've argued that one of the reasons why our much more intelligent, superior overlords in Hollywood and academia and in journalism, the reason why they had such a visceral disdain for Donald Trump, and you'll read this when you get to reading The Parasitic Mind, is because of what I call an aesthetic injury, right? So Donald Trump speaks in a way that then invalidates their existence because, he is gauche, he is brash, he is obnoxious, he doesn't speak with the beautiful vernacular, with the beautiful elocution. So if that guy can ascend to the highest office, then what does it say about all of the ego stroking that I've put behind on my wall with all the diplomas? Therefore, I must invalidate him so I can validate myself. What do you think?
I think you're brilliant, and you're 100% correct. It's completely true. Unfortunately, under some of our past administration as well, administrations, the same thing has happened within the military. There are people who are ascending to higher ranks in the military who aren't warfighters.
Yeah.
Give me a good warfighter in my foxhole any day. Give me Chris Kyle.
Yeah.
Any day over someone who can give a great speech.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the problem, is that too many of our military officers have become politicians in a sense, and that's unfortunate too, because there's a place, it's the Mike Tyson thing. Mike Tyson thing. It's like everybody can have a plan and everything can be wonderful till you get punched in the face, and then everything's out the window. And that's akin to life. I mean, it's what happens. I'm a filmmaker. I'm about to start a movie next Wednesday. We start principal photography for the first day. June 8th, we start. And there's a million things that are going to go wrong. And I don't need someone to explain to me, all the different possible reasons it could go wrong. I want someone to go, this is jacked up. This isn't fixed. We got to get here and make this happen. I get that. And Donald Trump did that. And he speaks. I spent a lot of time with former President Trump. A relative amount of time, but I spent time with him before he was president. I spent time in the Oval Office with him. And in the Oval Office, he was as candid as he ever was. I've judged Miss Universe contest or Miss World, Miss Universe, I don't know which one it was, for him in the past and things of that nature. He's a very candid individual. He is gruff. He is, you're building in New York. There's some bad words that come out when you're building in New York and you're doing these things and dealing with folks. And he was that way as a politician, and it was gruff, but he was very, very effective in my opinion.
Do you think that will run again in 2024, or do you think it's over?
I don't know. It's impossible to bet against him in a way. Like I saw his campaign for president absolutely unfold and disintegrate 6 times as far as I was concerned. Yeah. He'd make this comment, I'm like, okay, well that's going to be it. And then somehow he survived it. He says this something else, like, oh gosh, that's okay. He's done.
He's done. Yeah.
Survived it again. So I don't know. I get in these arguments on Twitter and elsewhere. Over his policies. I want to argue policy, and everybody just tells me what a terrible guy Donald Trump is. And I go, but what about his policies? It's the policies that matter, not whether he gives a great speech or reads the teleprompter very well or doesn't read the teleprompter very well, as our current commander-in-chief doesn't do very well. It's not about that. I love the way that Ronald Reagan was the great communicator.
Sure.
Ronald Reagan. There's a picture of me right here with Ronald Reagan.
Oh wow. Oh, wow.
Incredible. I was able to play Superman at the time, and I heard they said, there's a call. Ronald Reagan wants to meet with you. I was like, what?
Wow.
He was no longer president at the time, and so I met with him for an hour and a half. Unbelievable. For an hour and a half, and we talked about all sorts of things, and he wrote a wonderful inscription on the bottom of my photo. It says, to Dean, I've always wondered. I don't have to look at it. I know what it says. To Dean, I've always wondered, what do you do when there isn't a phone booth? Warmly, Ronald Reagan. And that's right there in a place of honor for me. Incredible. So he was a great communicator.
So here's what I haven't met any of these gentlemen that you just mentioned, but my instinct is that when you sit with someone like Ronald Reagan or George Bush, the junior, the son, they seem like cool guys that you want to hang out with. They exude that. Yep. I think in the case Obama, forget it. It's all fake stuff, right? He truly is a narcissist in that he needs to be the center of attention. I feel as though Trump, in a different manifestation of narcissism, also has to be the top dog. He's not going to. Is that okay? So that's it. So in a sense, when I often look at these either presidents or presidential candidates, I try to instinctively look at whether I would want to invite them over for dinner. And if my sense is they would be cool to hang out with, then I like them. And I guess what you're saying about Ronald Reagan is that he was a swell of a guy.
In a heartbeat. I wish he would come have dinner with me right now.
Wow.
Amazing man. The warmest individual. So funny. I mean, the fact that he reached out, he was like, who is this Superman kid? I like him. Princeton kid. Let me bring him in here.
But see, that's no pretense, right? One of the things that when you and I connected, so either someone reaches out to me or I reach out to them, I can also pick up their diva quotient score, right? Like, right? And I just met you, but in the very little that we've interacted, offline and so on, there is a realness about you. There's an authenticity. You don't think you're, and I'd like to think that I'm the same way. That's what allows me to speak with someone on Twitter who has 2 followers. Some folks will answer and say, why are you wasting your time on this person with 2 followers? Well, because I don't modulate my interactions as a function of how important you are. I'm real to a fault, right? So I will use humor where someone will criticize me. Well, a fancy professor like you should not be using sarcasm or acting like a... No. That's called being multifaceted, right? I can go to Stanford and give a talk, as you said earlier, that's very fancy and scientific, or I can shoot the blank.
Shoot the stuff.
Shoot the stuff with the corrections officer. I'm not above you. I'm part of you. And so, and I think I picked that up in you.
There's no doubt for me. I mean, I am as comfortable in an Ivy League setting as I am sitting across having a beer with somebody in a pub. And whether it's, or I'm in blue wearing the uniform. I purposely, wear the uniform alongside everybody else. There's no S on my shoulder when I do it. They make fun of it, but I don't need to be that guy. I don't need to have all the attention on me. I'm happy to be there and be part of. I'm a teammate. As a football player, you learn to be a teammate. And I can't do anything as a football player if the other 10 guys on my squad and the other 11 guys on the offense, because I'm a defensive player. I was a defensive player. I still sort of identify that way.
You were a safety, right?
Yes, I was a safety.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
Wow.
It was a lot of fun. I loved that. That was a position there, when you are like, I look at football players and I met a kid the other day. I looked at him and I said, "You're a corner." And he's right on the edge of going to the NFL. He's like, "Yep." And I already liked him because I already knew, I understood him as we play the same position basically. I got him. We just were right here. We don't like receivers. That's great, and that's just the way it is. And you understand each other right away. And as a safety, it's a perfect position for me.
Well, I think what I like about that position, forgive me for interrupting you, is that it actually caters to something that I used to be a competitive soccer player, and I used to play the playmaker role, which allowed me to kind of roam around looking for free spaces. And in a sense, a safety, because you don't have as much, one-on-one marking, you are playing that roaming role, correct?
Yeah, you're definitely a soccer player when you say one-on-one marking. We say covering.
Okay. There you go.
We don't mark someone, we cover them.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's a general area, and you're not involved in man-to-man coverage all the time, which I wasn't the fastest person out there. I wasn't the fastest player, but you give me the fastest guy, and I'll be 3 steps ahead of him because I know flow and I know the game and I pay attention. I'm a student of the game, and sometimes you'll cheat a little early, and sometimes you look like you're cheating a little early, and you're actually going the other way. So it's a mind game, and there's so much to it. But that's that freedom to be able to move around a little and do much, be a playmaker, is what a safety is, in my opinion. And that's why you quote the honey badger all the time.
Yeah.
You refer to honey badger mentality. There's a player who's playing right now, Tyrann Mathieu, who's called the honey badger. And
is that right? Okay.
That way. Yes, and he is amazing, and he's a safety.
There you go. Well, so let's start. I mean, maybe we could later mention, that you were going to play in the NFL, then you had a devastating injury. Do you want to talk about that? Because then I'd like to talk about some of our favorite football players before we return to wokeness in Hollywood. You want to tell quickly the story of what happened to you that didn't lead you to greatness in the NFL?
Well, I got signed to the Buffalo Bills. It was a wonderful place for me to play. I was an undrafted free agent out of Princeton. I was an All-American football player. I had a lot of interceptions, set some NCAA records, so I got some notoriety, which you need coming out of Princeton as a defensive back to get a chance at the NFL. And I got a shot because Jason Garrett, who was the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys up until last season for like 9 years, he played forever in the NFL. His father was a scout and was at all our games. Jason was my teammate, as was his brother John and his brother Judd, and they all went to the NFL as well. So that's what allowed me to get a look in the NFL. Buffalo was the perfect system for me. I was a rookie with Thurman Thomas, who's in the Hall of Fame now.
Oh, of course.
That year. So I came in with him, Bruce Smith, Cornelius Bennett, Jim Kelly, Andre Reed, these unbelievable players all there. And I was able to be there for a very short time, unfortunately. I got to camp. I felt very comfortable in the system. I was, on the bottom of the depth chart, of course, and I felt like I was moving my way up. And I was really enjoying the NFL experience more than college football. Like the way it felt like it was created the way I wanted things to run. This is how you're supposed to do it. Yes, this is it. Enough rest. Yes, we should have these things. This is great. So I was really excited about it, and I loved the way their defenses were set up. It was really to my strengths. And I had a lot to learn, obviously, but I felt really comfortable. I had a knee injury. It was nagging. They finally said you have to have surgery. I said, can I just wait till after the Houston game, first preseason game? Because I thought I would earn my spot by playing in the Houston game. But they didn't want me to get out there and get injured worse and have to pay me a bunch of money. Not that it was a much money, but it's a business decision.
Sure.
So I had to have surgery. I had it back in Los Angeles. They said that's the end of it. They went inside and saw a big defect in it. So I lost my lateral meniscus on my right knee. It's completely gone. They removed that completely, and there was a big defect on the bone. So I had a bone-on-bone situation. And they said, you need to retire. If you want to play basketball with your son when you're 40, you need to retire and think of something else to do.
Wow.
I was 22.
You know, it's I didn't make it to the NFL, but I was a top, if I may put it that way, a soccer player who certainly was looking at going pro. And I had at 17 in the Eastern Canadian Championships, we were Quebec champions. We have provinces, you have states. So we were the provincial champions, and then we were going to the Canadian Championship. And I had a guy come from behind and do what's called a scissors tackle in soccer. A scissors tackle is where, one leg goes here, the other one goes there. And that's usually a straight red card, precisely because it's so dangerous. And that ended it for me. And I guess maybe we can talk about this now. I had this question for later, but so for me, if you asked me what is my greatest regret in life, is that I wasn't able to instantiate, the full potential of my soccer career. I always knew that I wanted to be a soccer player and a professor from a very young age. So I got to be a professor, but I didn't get to, see out my soccer career. And every time that the World Cup comes around and so on, it's always, what could have happened? And, I was heading with the national team and so on. So in your case, if I were to ask you, so far, what is your greatest regret? Would it be that NFL injury, or would there be something else that would be nagging in the back of your mind?
No, I would say it's certainly the injury. I mean, I fortunately for me, and I'm sure it's the same for you, is I knew that I had the talent to be there.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to ask. I don't have the nagging question. Could I have ever made it? Because I was able to be there and go, yes, I feel like I belong here. And so I would have liked to have played for a couple of seasons. I really would have enjoyed that. Of course, we lost the AFC Championship my rookie game, but then the next 4 years went to the Super Bowl every year.
Right.
So if I had played 5 years, I would have seen 5 Super Bowls.
Oh my God! So this is like 90 or 94, right?
Yes, sir. It was 89, the 89 season to 90, whatever that would be, 93, 92, 93, and that's when I started playing Superman. So I was just like, But I wish I would have had the chance to get out there and play for a little while. Perhaps. It wouldn't have had to been for 15 years or anything crazy, no Tom Brady sort of stuff. But if I had been able to play for a few games, a couple of seasons, that would have been amazing for me. I would have loved that. So I do wish that I had had that opportunity. However, I don't run through my life with many regrets.
Oh, you're lucky.
Yes, there's very little that I regret. There's things that maybe I should have done differently, but I've learned from some of those mistakes I've made as a young, brash youth. But I've been very, very blessed and very fortunate in the way my life has gone. So I try to stay as humble as I can, because I know that, even if I made it to the NFL, maybe I would have dropped my head in one tackle and end up paralyzed like it happens on occasion, or maybe I'd have much more injuries now than I do. I've had 6 surgeries, not all because of football, but all because of some sort of athletic injury. Most of them from football.
Wow.
But that would be the biggest sort of regret I had. But in that sense, it's not even a regret. It's just I wish it had gone a little bit further.
Yeah, I can hear you. Do you mind if we do a bit more football before we come back to some more?
I can sit here and talk football for 6 hours.
Let's keep going. So listen to this story, Dean. So I was born in Lebanon, grew up there till the age of 11, then came to Canada, and for whatever reason, I took to football. Football, meaning soccer, was part of it.
I know.
Right. You know how it is. But then football, American football, I took to it within 2 seconds, became incredibly passionate about it. And the first team that I supported, and the first non-soccer player sort of sports hero that I had, you ready? Do you want me to give you any hints so that you can guess? It's a quarterback in the 70s.
Doug Flutie.
No, before. Quarterback in the 70s. Who?
Warren Moon.
Earlier. I'm old. 1970s.
In the 70s?
Yes, I'm 11. 1970s.
Well, 1970, I was 4. We're not that far apart. Wow.
No, not 1970. I said 1970s. So I'll give you a hint, like 76, 77, 78. Who was the big team? There was Pittsburgh. Who was the other one? Say it.
Roger Staubach.
Yes!
Dallas Cowboys. Yes.
Roger Staubach was my guy. You know,
He's amazing.
I just loved him. Roger the Dodger. I used to love the Dallas Cowboys. You know, Preston Pearson and the rest of the gang. And actually, Preston Pearson was that the safety, or there were two Pearsons? One was a safety.
Drew Pearson was the wide receiver. Preston Pearson was a running back.
Exactly.
Oh, I remember all this so well. Unbelievable.
So then move.
Great teams.
Good, phenomenal team. Now then we move to, I consider to be the greatest, and you're a much bigger expert than me, so you'll correct me if I'm wrong, although some of it is just personal preferences. The greatest running back of all time is Barry Sanders. I still today put all the highlights reels for my young son just to show him what the things that he can do that you just go, how is that possible? Super pissed that he retired early. Where do you put him in the ranking of all-time greats? Forgetting about the fact that he's not number one in terms of overall yardage, but in terms of style and so on.
I put him number 1. I think Barry Sanders was, because I'm looking who I would hate to tackle. Like Eric Dickerson was amazing, incredible. He ran very up and down, and I feel like I can get a tackle, I get a hit on him, get a tackle, you can get a good shot at him. Barry Sanders, there's some players you can't. Doesn't matter. You line it up, you're flying in there, you go in to get this big hit. And even when you hit him, you don't really get him. You just sort of can't get him. And it's these little things they can do with their body. And what Barry Sanders was able to do, his quickness and his shiftiness, he would have been the hardest back ever for me to tackle. I loved him. I loved Tony Dorsett, of course. I loved Marcus Allen. I loved the sweetness himself.
Peyton.
Walter Payton. But I have to give number 1 to Barry Sanders.
Oh, that's fantastic. You know, there was a safety. I don't remember if it was John Lynch from Denver or one of the team who said,
John Lynch, Denver.
Yeah, when we play Detroit, I guess my only goal is to make sure that I don't make it into the highlight reels for that evening. And I thought that was such a fantastic quote, because that's exactly it, right? There's 11 guys on the other team. That's what I always tell my wife. I tell her there's something magical, mystical about sports competition, because all the competitors, they're all fast, they're all strong, they're all great, they're all trained, they could all line up to hit you, and yet somehow you're just better than them. And it's what you said about trying to hit Barry Sanders. You know how to play, yet he's going to beat you. I love that.
Yes.
There's something transcendental about that.
It's a Michael Jordan sort of situation.
It's a Michael Jordan.
Everybody's out there, but then there's one guy who is head and shoulders above, or Magic Johnson. How does that happen? And it's the very rare athlete that can do that. And there is something magical about it. The movie I'm about to do, you may like the film I'm about to do, because it's I wrote it, I'm producing it, directing it, starring in it. It's about a football coach, an American football coach, who gets in trouble for saying the wrong thing about he had a female kicker come in and try to kick an extra point, and she missed it, and then he makes fun of her, and he gets suspended for the season, and he has to do community service and go to a sensitivity seminar, which he doesn't like. And the community service he has to do is go coach a 12-year-old girls soccer team, and he hates soccer. And it's not football. He doesn't call it football. He calls it soccer. But then, of course, he grows to really love the girls, and they're the oddball team. It's kind of like the Mighty Ducks.
That's what I was going to say. Okay. So, wow. So that's
fun.
You're starting to shoot next week.
Next Wednesday. Wednesday, June 8th, we start principal photography. We've already shot one day during a football game, but I'm not going to count that as principal yet.
I'm guessing if there is a role for an exceptionally good-looking 50-something-year-old super old soccer player, you're looking towards Canada for casting?
There's a certain guy. He was born in Lebanon, so I don't know if I can get him there or not. He's one of these guys, really smart. So I don't know if I can pull him in for that, but if I can, I would have him there. It would be brilliant. What an Easter egg in that movie.
Oh my goodness. Last thing on football. My favorite current player is sort of heading towards Barry Sanders, but nowhere near, Alvin Kamara.
Unbelievable. He is an athlete unlike many that you'll ever see. And then he works really, really hard in the off season too. The drills and the balance drills he does. He also helped me win 2 of my fantasy league football games last year because he scored 6 touchdowns in one of those late games, and it just, I won everything. It was great.
It's the mechanics. You're gonna get this. Obviously, you were about to be a pro football player, so I don't need to explain this to you. But there is something in the mechanics of his movement, right? I mean, I've been watching football for 40-some years. I've seen a million running backs. I watch him, it's orgasmic. Just the way he shimmies, the way he does. A combination of the finesse with the power. He's about as close as Barry Sanders, without being nearly as good as Barry Sanders, as I've seen.
Have you seen any of his workout stuff?
I have not.
That's what you might want to see, some of that stuff, because he does some incredible balance stuff, things you can't even think about. And it's that stuff that translates to his game. He's got incredible people that he works with. He works incredibly hard in the off season. And he looks like, if you ever see him, if you saw him like as a human being, just looked at him with where you can see his physique, forget the statue of David. I mean, the man is ridiculous. He's just, it's as though you carved him out of granite. Like, show me the perfect human. There it is.
You know, I can see it without having seen him without his clothes off. Just the way he fills out his thing. He's so proportionate, right? The legs are perfect to the size of the torso. You know, and it's funny because I went through a long, big weight loss journey recently, and I know that you, thank you, and I know that you have too. I think I was reading that you had been pre-diabetic and you had to lose a lot of weight, and so and I'm much shorter than you, and so I probably weighed as much as you did with many fewer inches. So it wasn't a good thing. So I really had to kind of nip this in the bud. And as I was going down my weight, I've lost now just since January 40 pounds, but in total about 65 pounds, 70 pounds almost, yeah. And as I was going down, my marker was I'm now 10 pounds more than Alvin Kamara. I now weigh as much. So it's like, you know how there is before Christ and after Christ so there's, where am I in the Alvin Kamara? And so I was walking with my son a few days ago and I said, I can't believe it. I'm incredibly thinner now than Alvin Kamara. I feel pretty good about myself. so everything is
after Kamara. That's exactly it. That's perfect. And it's Alvin Kamara. It's great. Well, that's amazing. Congratulations on that, because as we get into our 50s, it's a very, very important thing. And it's difficult because things hurt and all the injuries and so on and so forth, and it catches up to you. And I'm starting to get to the age where some of my friends are experiencing some health issues and things of that nature. So I wanted to make sure that wasn't me. And we all get a little lazy about it.
Yeah.
And it's something that if you don't take care of the body, the rest will follow.
I hear you. All right, let's return now to wokeness and Hollywood. So I tried to, as I was coming up with my list, Jon Voight.
Yes, sir.
We've got James Woods.
Yep.
We've got the granddaddy Clint Eastwood. If you can hook up a brother here with a Clint Eastwood chat, I tell you, there are very, very few, actors, athletes that I'm interested in speaking to. Not because I'm being haughty, but because they don't strike me as interesting and so on. Clint Eastwood strikes me as a delicious guy to talk to. Do you know him? Would that be true? I don't know.
I wish I did, but he reminds me a lot of my father.
I knew you were going to say that. You mean your stepfather?
He's my stepfather technically, but he's my father.
Okay, I got you. Why? Because of his no nonsense. What are the similarities?
My father was a cowboy, a farm kid from South Dakota. He grew up on a farm. He grew up, milking cows and feeding chickens and cows and horses and things. And he was rodeo rider, rode bulls and things of that nature. And he became a film director. He's a no nonsense guy, and he has that sort of toughness, that cowboy thing that Clint Eastwood has. There's times he looks and says something, and I feel like I'm looking at my father. It's crazy. So he reminds me of Clint and his demeanor and the way he approaches things and his simplicity of advice. Sometimes he says something and I'm like, what does that even mean? Yeah. The roots of the tree have to be strong. But what? And then I think about it and I get it after. Oh, okay. So he reminds me of him in that very sort of down home, simplistic bit of advice that is so much more complicated than it seems,
Right.
and so much more savvy and nuanced than you would believe, coming from the guy who might be whittling with his knife, whittling a little pointed stick. And my dad would sit there and do that, and then come up with some humdinger that I didn't even expect, and just be like, what is that? And that reminds me of what I think Clint Eastwood is like. Even having auditioned for Clint Eastwood, he doesn't have you come in and audition. This is way pre-COVID. He'll have you do it on tape. If he likes it, you're in. You got 1 or 2 takes on the day. Better be ready.
Wow. Well, I mean,
all the time.
What I love, I mean, so I first discovered Clint when I was a very, very young child. So we're talking, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 in Lebanon with the spaghetti westerns, the Sergio Leone spaghetti westerns, Once Upon a Time, all that, whatever, all that stuff. And that's when I first kind of said, I want to be that guy, right? The guy, right? I mean, that's the male archetype. I want to be that guy, right? And then, of course, later in the 70s, you got, what is the Make My
Dirty Harry
and all that. But then his ability, and I'm going to come back to the woke stuff in a second, but then his ability to transition to being not just a, unbelievable actor, but an unbelievable director, that shows the depth, right? I mean, a lot of, handsome guys that are tall and leading men can pull that off, but that doesn't mean they can be directors. The fact that you could do everything suggests that there's a lot of brain power there.
There is. Clint Eastwood has a lot of that, and if I could have, an iota of the career that he's had, I will be very happy.
Which of your
done some great stuff.
Which of your hats? So you're a producer, you're an actor, you do presenting stuff on TV. Of all these, what's the one that you love the most?
Being a dad. Really, honest to goodness.
Yeah.
I'm a single father. Being a dad has been the greatest thing. I enjoy making movies, and I enjoy being a director and a writer and an actor. I enjoy them all, but being a dad has been the greatest thing ever in my lifetime. And you make a lot of mistakes doing so, but it's the greatest thing that I've ever had. If I could wear that hat and only that hat, I'd be just fine.
You have a son?
But yes, I have a almost 21-year-old son. He'll be 21 on June 11th, so he'll turn 21 working on my film set.
Okay, so he's not going to school with the blue-haired people.
Yes.
Oh, he is. Okay.
No, he's going to blue-haired people. He's in school in North Carolina at a lovely university called High Point University, and he is someone who I think was actually the president of that university. I think was also born in Lebanon.
Oh.
In that right in that little niche, that little area, really close. His name is Nito Cubain, and he's a wonderful, wonderful man and an inspiration. I think you guys would enjoy speaking to one another as well. He is a very interesting guy. But my son goes to school there. He's just back here for the summertime, and they've been in school. They've missed very little time whatsoever. They've been in person school the whole time.
Oh, wow.
Private university, and so he's just back for the summertime, and he needs to go to work. And Dad's working, so you're going to work for me, kid. That's it.
So you're currently in Southern California?
Yes, sir.
In I don't know if you want to say, or is it like in the LA region?
No, I live in Malibu. I was raised in Malibu. I've lived my life here. Well, once I could afford to move back here, because once I went to college and came out, I had to live in all different places within Los Angeles after being in Buffalo. But then I was able to finally find my way back to Malibu, and it's a wonderful place to live. It's not Los Angeles.
Yeah, I got you.
Stretch the imagination. It's a small little village. There's 13,000 residents in Malibu, and it's a small place, but you can get to Hollywood and all that ridiculousness when you have to.
I know it. I know Malibu well. I lived in Southern California, by the way, for a few years because I was a professor at UC Irvine, and I've had family in Southern California since 84, I think. So really, Southern California is literally like a second home to me. I've always wanted it to be my primary home. And I think if you were to ask me what are my biggest regrets so far, well, one, I can't do anything about at this point, is the soccer one. But the one that I can still do something about, and I hold out hope that it can happen, is I still haven't found a way to permanently relocate to Southern California. And my desire to be in Southern California is really at the most fundamental, visceral level. I love the luminosity of the sun. I love the way the air smells. Now, we're Newport Beach people, if I can put it this way, both in terms of where we lived, where my brother was, and so on. So I've always been so I really understand when you said a small village, because people say, but what do you like Southern California? It's horrible. I say, I've got nothing to do with LA. I'm 1 hour south. I'm in this little village. I live in this fantasy world. I never see highways. So I understand your love for Southern California, and I wish I could join you there. Hopefully one day.
Hopefully, it's impossible to beat the weather. It's just, you can't. I've never been someplace other than maybe Sydney, Australia, the northern beaches of Sydney, where it felt like this.
Yeah, and to some extent, Lebanon is similar, and I hear that Cape Town, South Africa, has also some similarities with Southern California. But yeah, you're right. It's the best place. Now, usually every summer by we I mean my family, my wife and kids, we spend much of our summer in Southern California. Although, of course, in an ideal world, we'd be spending our winters in Southern California. But I'm tied to my teaching schedule, so we do what's next best, which is to spend the summer in Southern California. But now it's been, since COVID, almost 2 years that we haven't been able to return, and so we're really keen to return, hopefully one day soon. All right, let's go.
We'll go out and have a drink.
Oh, I look forward to it. That would be fantastic. So, by the way, I know several other actors and so on, but probably the one that I know the best, who's the closest friend of the acting world, is, do you know someone named Mark Pellegrino?
I know the name. I don't know that I know him personally.
He is the guy who plays, as I understand it, he played maybe Lucifer or something like that. Was there a show called Lucifer?
There was a show called Lucifer. I don't remember. I never saw it. I know that Tom Welling, who also played Clark Kent on Smallville, I worked with. I know he was on that show, but I never saw Lucifer.
Okay, yeah, because he's been on my show. At first, how we met is he came on my show because he's a very staunch libertarian. So in addition to being an actor, he's very much, politically engaged, not unlike how I got to really know you through all of your appearances on Fox and so on. I'm surprised you haven't been invited by your good friend Rachel Maddow yet to go on her show. What happened there?
I wish she would. I'd show up. I'd show up in a heartbeat. I've done things on CNN. I'll go anytime. They just don't ask me to come on.
Yeah, no,
and I would be there in a second. I'm sure you would do the same.
Exactly right.
If they don't ask me to, I would be happy to.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. There's a couple of woke journalists that follow me, and I've reached out to them and said, hey, why don't you come on my show? Because my point is not to only speak to people who are already sold on the ideas that I discuss. I actually want to appear on all those other platforms, some of which might be hostile and so on, because the point is to try to change people's hearts and minds, right? They never even replied to me, which, again, it speaks to that obnoxiousness. You and I connected. There's no pretense. We connect, we chat, boom, 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 and then we make it happen, right?
Yes, and it's unfortunate. That's what we're lacking, I think, and I think people want that to happen these days. Keep people separate, keep them in their echo chambers, push this point of view. I don't have to tell you what the media has done, and we're seeing little bits and sprinkles of it come out now, and, oh, yeah, sure, COVID could have escaped from the Wuhan lab, and maybe everything this person says isn't a lie. And these things that they're saying, it's like, if they actually hear what they're saying, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's crazy that these are journalists saying maybe everything Tom Cotton says isn't a lie. I mean, what are you talking about?
Did you see the changes that they did to the headlines with Tom Cotton? It came out today. Somebody put out a tweet. Wasn't it unbelievable?
It's disgusting to me.
Yeah,
it's disgusting, and it's so blatant, and it's right in your face, but it just escapes. It kind of somehow just oozes away, and then nobody is held responsible for it.
Yeah,
I don't understand that.
So let's go back to. So I mentioned 4 guys: James Woods, John Voight, yourself, Clint Eastwood. Maybe I'm missing some other names. You'll correct me in a second. What I see across all these folks is they're honey badgers. In what way? They are existing in an environment where it could be very, very punitive to even come close to remotely saying anything like you guys say. Now, I'm even in a more honey badger situation, if I can say, because I'm in academia. I'm in the Wuhan virology lab of crappy ideas. It's called academia, right? You're just the downstream effect. We create the BS, okay, in academia, and yet look how outspoken I am. So So what is it? So that has to be. So if I look at each of you, now you have a much more diplomatic, less acerbic, friendly, warm, handsome way about you. James Woods, I see him on Twitter. He's fantastic. I mean, he literally makes me boom, right? You got Ricky Gervais. Okay, he's not American, but he's within that group. Sure. So can we bottle any of this, or you're either innate, you're born with that ability to sort of stand and say, I'm not going to have any of it, or can we teach people to be that, or you either have it or you don't?
I think we can teach people to some degree, but I think that I think it's both. Obviously, it's kind of a wishy-washy answer, but I think it's both. I think there are people who would be inspired and will be inspired by those who do this, by a James Woods, by a Clint Eastwood, and say, okay, if he does it and he can say those things, then maybe I can too. Even though this is what I believe, I'll just shut my mouth and go along so that I can go along to get along and to move forward in my career. One thing that we all sort of have in common is that we all had established a certain amount of credibility as an actor and a bit of a career before these things started flying out of our mouths. And I think that's important because if I were a young actor, there's so many people who are advising you when you first become a young actor and find some success. They're, okay, you have to find a charity to support, and this is their publicists are doing this, and you have to do this. What is your thing? And I'm like, my thing is I'm 26 and I want to pay my rent. I mean, I don't know. I don't have a thing, and they want you to develop a thing that you support and this and that. As you get older and you go through life, those things happen naturally. There's so many things that I support. My deciding to become a law officer, that law enforcement officer, that's something that I'm 100% behind. My son was in school. Education became a much more important issue to me. And these things happen as life goes on. But they tell you have to come here and do this, say this, don't say that. There was things that I was working on one show. I'll just leave the show out. But they were talking about doing this public service announcement. Every member of the cast, they wanted to do this, talking about gun control. Well, I sit on the board of directors for the NRA. There's no way you're going to get me to say anything that I supported what they were saying. Do I think that crazy people and felons should have guns? No. But do I think that you have a right in the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution to keep and bear arms? Yes, I do. Do they all have to be just little pistols? No. I believe in the right to, have an AR-15, which is the most popular hunting rifle in the world. And do I have these things? Of course I do. And do I know how to use them? Yes. Does my son? Yes. Do all the members of my family? Yes, we do. Do we walk around and brandish them and talk? No. That's not what it's about. Right. So I believe in that. So I wouldn't go along with that. And, of course, there was a lot of ruffled feathers and things of that nature. But as a young kid, I probably would have gone along with it because I didn't know better. And I didn't realize that I was being sort of manipulated to do so. And it would have cost me a lot of work. I'm sure it's cost me all sorts of work. Nobody
even now, right? Even now.
Yes, of course. People are like, "Oh, him? I don't want to deal with him." No, he's a right winger or this or that. When I'm completely not. When it comes to social issues, I am as far left as you can be. I mean, I don't care about what anybody does. I'm very libertarian in a lot of my views as well. I don't care what you do at home or who you want to love or how you want to love. I believe in treating everybody with respect and dignity. But treat me poorly, it might come back at you a little more sharp than you want. I'm not just because someone is a certain way. If they treat me that way, they're going to get treated that way in return. In a sense, I'm not a counterpuncher like Donald Trump, but I'm a grown man. I don't like that. I treat people with respect. If they don't treat me the same, then I go, okay, you're over here. Yeah. I'll put you in this little box over on that side. And if you're wonderful and great, I don't care what color you are, or how tall you are, or what your ethnicity is, or this is a good person. That's what I care about. In my Twitter bio, on the top of it, I have that Martin Luther King Jr. quote about him having a dream that one day his little children will live in a world where they're judged by the content of the character, not the color of their skin. Well, I mean, I didn't quote it correctly, but boy, I can't tell you how many people on Twitter have told me that I have to take it down because I'm a white supremacist racist. Now, I, of course, my given name is Tanaka. I'm Japanese. I'm a quarter Japanese. I'm certainly not a white supremacist by any stretch of the imagination. I played in the NFL. Most of my friends, 80% of them, 70% of them are black. So there's no racism in me.
No, but you suffer from multiracial whiteness. Come on, man. Just because you may not be white doesn't mean you're not a white supremacist. Herschel Walker, the football player, is a white supremacist.
I know him, and I love Herschel.
He's great.
Is he a racist too? Is he a multi-racist? What is
he? Is multiracial. He suffers from multiracial whiteness. Have
you seen his son, Christian?
I haven't, no.
His son, Christian Walker. You might want to check him out on Twitter. You'd be shocked, A, that that's Herschel Walker's son. B, that he has the gumption to say the things he says. That young man is a character. I would love to hear your professorial Dr. Christian Walker.
So he's on the anti-woke, not the blue-haired people, right?
No, he is certainly anti-woke.
Ah, okay, I'll check him out.
People. He speaks his mind, but I would love to hear your take as a professor of human behavior to just tell me where this
I'm excited. I'm going to go check. I'm always excited when I see a new person who's joining the Team Reason, so I'll definitely check him out and let you know what I think of him.
Herschel Walker's son is going to be there's some things that you can explain that I can't quite put together. So I would love
very
to
cool.
hear your take.
Very cool.
And I'm sure he would love to come on the show.
Oh, that's wonderful. So I know that you recently mentioned, and thank you. That was a very nice shout out regarding our mutual friend and boyfriend, Seth Rogen. And please, if when I come and visit you in Malibu, it'll be my biggest honor for me to meet the brilliant Seth Rogen. So that would be wonderful. It'll be a dream come true for me. But in any case, I appreciate that I don't have to explain to you that I'm being sarcastic. So thank you for that. Because sometimes I notice that the person doesn't get my thing, and I say, "No, I'm just kidding." So thank you for that. So, do you ever interact with the woke people in Hollywood and have a serious conversation with them, where you then see that they've actually listened to you and you got them to move a bit, or are they impenetrable to reason because they've been inculcated with all the BS of Hollywood?
I find more often than not, depending on where they sit. I mean, first of all, I'll say this, that I get so many people quietly coming up to me and saying, "Oh my God," just want to hug me. Listen, thank you. I mean, it's all over the place. Whether it's in my industry, we're on set doing something, someone just comes up and goes, "Hey man, I just want to say thank you. I just want to say thank you for all that you say and do, and you have the nuts to say it, and thank you for doing that, because it's what I want to say and I can't, because they're in a different position or something like that. They're just like, so just thank you." I have people who quietly come up to me and go, "Hey man, I got a firearm. I need some safety classes. Where do I go for this? Where can I tell them these things?" and so on and so forth. I get people. I mean, I fly a lot, so I can't tell you how often I get a little note from somebody who's one of the flight attendants coming by and just say thank you for the thing, and like, I get more people talking about the politics stuff like that than the overt Superman stuff. So I get it all the time. So it's very fulfilling to hear that, and very reassuring to go, okay, there are people who are listening, and it's not the Hollywood woke crowd. I will happily have those conversations with anybody in the Hollywood woke crowd. What I find is whenever I do sort of want to engage, I hear it, because I'll hear it in the makeup room. Things are going, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, look out, because Dean will say something." And I'll just go, "Well, I don't agree with that, and here's why I don't. But I'd love to hear your opinion on it." And okay, we'll have a conversation. When I have someone who's reasonable and I have those conversations, generally I can see some movement. And I listen, if your argument's better than mine, I'll move.
Yeah, of course.
I'm happy to, but I'm happy to have the conversation. I want to have the conversation. Then there's those who, the moment you start on that, they can't have the conversation.
Yeah.
They get too emotional, they get upset, and it's ruined the day. Now you can't film, and things are going haywire, so you got to not do that, because it'll make someone so upset that they can't film and can't do things, because they get completely irrational. I've seen that with some great actors, people that I like, when they were having some sort of political conversation, they just lost their beans.
You mean with you?
Yeah. Well, they couldn't beat my argument, but it was like, they just get like this, you don't understand it, and they just melt down. And I'm completely calm. What am I not clear about, or what? Make your point. I'd love to hear your point that refutes what I'm saying. It's just, you're wrong. It shouldn't be that way. And or you didn't grow up this way. Or no, I didn't. But you didn't grow up the way I grew up either. So it doesn't change the fact that this could work this way. Or my support of Israel, I get that sometimes too.
You mean the Nazi apartheid state that's committing a daily genocide of Palestinians whose population has grown fivefold in the worst documented genocide in the history of the world? That country?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, the genocide. The definition. I've made a documentary on genocide. I made a documentary on the genocide, the Armenian genocide. It's called.
By the way, do you know that I'm married to a Lebanese Armenian woman? No, you didn't know that.
I did not know that. No, sir. Wow.
Yeah,
well, then you know how important the Armenian genocide is to an Armenian.
Of course.
And it's incredibly well documented. So I did a project. It was called. It's called Architects of Denial, and it deals with the denial of that genocide and the burying the story basically by Turkey for this entire time. And it's not the Turkish people, it's certainly the Turkish government. They don't want to deal with what the atrocities that took place and the 1.5 million Armenians that were killed and moved and marched, all the way from Armenia to Syria and Lebanon and beyond and all over the area. And so we made that project. I understand what a genocide is. I don't think the Palestinians are experiencing a genocide, to put it mildly. And I spent time in Israel and in Jordan and I loved being over there. I so desperately want to be able to spend time in Lebanon, but I just haven't been able to. My first girlfriend was Lebanese. She broke my heart. Thank you. I blame you.
I'm sorry. On behalf of all Lebanese people, I'm sorry. But I can tell you this, and I'm saying this not because I'm Lebanese. Lebanese women are truly the most beautiful women in the world.
I will not argue with you.
Bingo. But I'm going to keep you away from my wife because you're just too goddamn good looking. So I don't like that. Good looking and tall. I'm just coming to have dinner with you alone. You're not getting close to my wife. I'm sorry. Football player, tall, Superman. It's not going to happen.
You've got me beat with the intellectual swordplay.
Maybe by a bit.
I'm not getting into that one.
I want to ask you. So this is actually an article that I'd written. I think maybe 2010, maybe 2009. I don't write often for this column anymore. I had a very popular Psychology Today column, and in arguably one of my most popular articles was an article titled "The Narcissism and Grandiosity of Celebrities." And what I was doing there is I was offering a psychological analysis of some of the reasons why celebrities are so narcissistic and grandiose. There's several of them. I'll just focus on one. And I wanted to sort of get your perspective as an insider in Hollywood, what you think of the theory. When a plane crashes, there's something called survival guilt, right? If,
Sure.
The guy right next to you died and you didn't, and you're sort of haunted by this existential thing. Well, why did I survive? And this poor guy who had 2 kids next to him died. And so
soldiers go through this. I know that as well.
Exactly.
I've seen that up close and personal.
Exactly right. And so I argued, using that sort of existential guilt sense, that actors in many instances realize that in the deep recesses of their minds that they are not worthy of all the adulation that they have. I mean, they're in that sense they're existentially fraudulent, right? I mean, sure. I'm really not deserving of a million people lining up screaming because their brain has somehow tricked them into thinking that I'm truly a superhero when I simply play a superhero, right? But our evolved mind, I don't see Dean Cain, I see Superman, right? Who saved the world, and I just want to touch him. He's a superhero, he's royalty, right? And so they know in the deep recesses of their mind when they put their heads on their pillows to sleep at night that they're, in that sense, fraudulent. So the only way that they can correct that existentially is if they then show the world that they are actually people of much greater depth. They're saving the world, they're saving this, they're doing that, right? Madonna is gonna detoxify the lakes from uranium. I don't remember what it was, using Kabbalah juice. Gwyneth Paltrow is going to, I don't know what, through her vagina power, is going to reverse engineer aging, all kinds of stuff. I'm a person of substance. I'm not just a dumb, pretty, or handsome actor. And so because of that, they then and because they're never told no. They're only surrounded by yes people, so they don't get negative feedback. There's no loop that says, "Hey, Dean, cut it. You're acting like an asshole, right? And so, right, but Mr. Cain, how can I? Oh, you don't like the color blue? We will eradicate from Earth the color blue because Mr. Cain is coming to the hotel. That's what Jennifer Lopez does apparently with the color white, if I'm not mistaken. There can't be any manifestation of the color white when she comes in, or whatever the color is. So because of these sort of mutual forces, I'm no longer well calibrated to have epistemic humility, to know what I know and know what I don't know. Scientists have that, right? When I know something, I speak with all the swagger of someone who knows. But there's a million things I know nothing about. So that if you ask me about it, I'll say, you know what, Dean, I know nothing about this, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Actors don't have that because they're superheroes. What do you think? Is that your sense of the dynamics of what's happening?
My short answer would be absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, no question about it. I think you alluded to it in your series of tweets where you castrated Seth Rogen.
Yes,
I saw some of that, and it's 100% correct. And I know so many of these folks, and I know what frauds they are in that sense. And so for me, it's just 100%. You are 100% on, and you are right in that they're surrounded by yes people. There's no one there to say no. I have family that are rooted in saying no to me very easily. And as a football player, all my teammates, no problem saying no to me. And when I go to a gym, I box. They don't care what I have to say. They don't care at all, and they're going to hit me, and whether they think I'm this or that, they're going to work me, and it doesn't matter. So there are I like being in those situations. As a police officer, I'm a police officer. I'm not out there. I mean, people are going to call me names, do things, spit in my coffee or whatever happens. That's those kind of things. I'm okay with that. I like being in that position because that's based in reality. But so often, and it's really, and you were right. But I think it's even worse than you even allude to. The things that people in this industry can get away with and have been getting away with for so long because of their ability, their talent on the screen or whatever, is insane. And they are complete frauds. It's like I said when I first became an actor, they were telling me I had to pick some causes. You have to get behind certain causes because that'll be your thing and whatever. I was like, I don't have a thing.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm a kid. I don't have a thing. Let me develop a thing, and then it'll be legitimate.
That's your authenticity speaking, even at 26 years old. So I've been on Joe Rogan's show, many times. And
love Joe.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I think it might have been the first time I ever was on, or one of the first times, where he said something that I've often repeated because I thought it was so brilliant. We were talking about all this, the actors and phoniness, and he said something that I loved, and I think it also speaks to the realness when you put on the blue suit, because there's no faking it there. You do a traffic stop. There's no faking, right? So he said, what he goes when. I don't like the acting stuff. He sort of was very much like you. He hated all that phony stuff. He's a very real guy. And he said, when I stand up as a stand-up comic, it's all there. There is no faking it. You're either funny or you're not. The audience will tell you. When you enter the MMA ring, there's no faking it. There's no inauthenticity there. And then he pointed to me and he said something really lovely that I really took as a beautiful compliment. He said, when you stand up the way that you do and share your ideas, if you're saying BS, you're going to get skewered. There is a realness in the positions that you take, and you better be able to stand and defend those positions. And the fact that he was able to make that sort of authenticity link between all these, and I'm going to add now, you being a police officer to that authenticity realm, that's the beauty of what we do, right? There is no fakeness. Now, oftentimes people wrongly think that when I'm being, combative on Twitter, I should modulate better because a professor should be, smoking a pipe and sipping a martini and pontificating in the air. Manage your image better. And I'm like, no, F you. I am what I am, for better or for worse. And I think most people truly appreciate that. Bottom line.
I think most people who are real and honest about it do. And there are those who want to believe, want you to project this other image. It's funny, someone says to you to modulate that, change that a little bit, when that's exactly who you are. They say it to us as actors all the time. I mean, I couldn't believe the number of people who were trying to coach me to go on talk shows and things. Actors are terrible on talk shows most of the time because actors don't like who they are. And that's why they're so comfortable being
something else,
another character.
Yeah.
Don't have to get in there and be themselves. There are a few who are, but not that many. And so I see it all the time. And they're terrible on talk shows. And I won't name names, but there's some very famous ones that you just go, whoa, I like this person in a film, but boy, I don't like them on a talk show at all. It just doesn't make any sense. And you're right, Derek. It's because they're very fraudulent in what they're doing and what they're representing, and that's why they can go and be somebody else all the time.
Does one of them have a name that rhymes with Bobbert the Biro?
I would think that is the case. Very much. I've heard some stories, and the worst thing you could say to me about someone is that they're a bad parent.
Oh yes.
And I've heard things, and I don't know personally. Listen, that's an actor who I would be happy to work with as an actor because he's probably very talented as an actor.
Oh yeah.
And I would not watch a movie because so and so is in it. But I don't think that works both ways for a lot of folks. I can watch a movie with someone who I know, whether it's I think Seth Rogen's a funny actor.
Yeah,
and I enjoy and what he does, and I think it's fun to watch him. I really wish he would take the opportunity to have a conversation with you and get into it because, I think he would really reveal more about himself than he believes.
And I hope that you know this of me, even though we've just met, even though I was, very frontal and direct with him in our exchange, although I don't think I was impolite. If he came on my show, I would be completely gracious. I would not in the least bit, because maybe it's my Middle Eastern background, the hospitality thing. Maybe it's just my personhood, that once you are a guest on my show, because oftentimes people say, oh, you seem so much warmer and kinder when you have guests on, but when you take on somebody on Twitter, well, that's just because of the situation, right? If you mug me in an alley, I will act differently than if I'm tucking my children to bed. I haven't suddenly changed dispositions. It's the situation that demanded that in one case I responded violently and in the other I didn't. So it's not because I am a bad guy that I did what I did on Twitter, but if you've insulted me 74 times and then I come back with you, right? So I would love for him to come on the show because I think he does have a huge audience. He can change people's minds. By me being able to reach out to him a bit, he might be then able to modulate his thinking. But apparently he's not interested. So
he's not interested because he doesn't want to be challenged.
Exactly.
And that's unfortunate because I want to be challenged. I'm happy. Like I said, I'd be happy to go on CNN and discuss things anytime. And if you and I disagreed, I would have no problem. It wouldn't make me not like you as a human being. I would say I disagree on this because of that or whatever, and then I happen to agree with you because you're brilliant. But if I disagreed on something, I'd say I don't agree with that 100% because X, Y, or Z, and we could have an intelligent disagreement. They're necessary, and they're supposed to be what you're. This is the thing that bothers me about education so much is that's where you're supposed to be challenged intellectually, and you're supposed to be challenged, and to live in this echo chamber that so many do. Where if you challenge someone's ideas and hear something that sounds uncomfortable to you, it's not okay. You won't be able. You're canceled from the university or fired or whatever. It's like Ben Shapiro coming to speak and people, no, we don't want him to speak here. What is that's literally the antithesis of what you're supposed to be doing in college.
Unbelievable. All right, 2 more questions because I could keep you here for another 6 hours. You're such a delight. Number 1, when are we going to get the announcement that Superman Dean Cain is running for political office? When is that happening?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been really interesting here because, and this is a very deadly serious thing, is I don't want to be a politician. I really don't. It's terrible. What a horrible job. But that's how it was set up here in the United States. It was set up to be a horrible job that you didn't want to do. You'd come and do it part-time and you'd get out.
Yeah, of course.
I'd be willing to serve in political office only because I believe I would represent my constituents well, and I would certainly live by and abide by my morals, my standards, and the things that I espouse. 100%.
So it's crossed your mind, like you've thought about it.
Oh, not only have I thought about it, it's been brought to my attention, and I've been asked to run for Senate. I've been asked to run for governor. I've been asked to run for Congress, a whole bunch. And we're in a situation where we have our current governor here in California, Gavin Newsom, who is being recalled.
Yes.
And that's going to go on the ballot. And the deadline, I already know the deadline for having to declare candidacy for the gubernatorial race would be July 14th. I have people talking to me every day going, listen, it's kind of turning into a circus. We need you to end this. Get in here and run. And I say, I don't want to run. When they go, that's exactly why you should run. And I don't want the power or the prestige. So many politicians, and I meet many of them, they do it for that. They really think they're almost like an actor, like they're something special.
Yeah.
Then I meet some that don't feel that way, like Representative Brad Wenstrup from Cincinnati, from Ohio. He was an Army medic. He's the guy who saved Steve Scalise on the field.
Oh,
he was
right.
applying. He is the most humble guy. Spent time talking with my son. Gave him a little interview. We were in Poland, going to visit Auschwitz and Birkenau and different places, and going through this. And he was the most humble, wonderful guy. He doesn't strike me as somebody who's in it for anything, but he's so humble. You know, he'll speak his mind and he'll represent his constituents, but he's not there for the prestige and look at me, I'm the governor thing, and that's what I want. So would I be willing to serve? Yes. Do I want to do it? No. Could I be effective? That's the big question, because California has a super majority of Democrats, and my ideas would sound, horrendous. Border security, cleaning up the homeless situation, jobs. We have the highest rate of poverty in the nation in California. We're the fifth largest economy in the world, but we're completely business unfriendly. I mean, there's so many things. Taxes are out of control. I feel it's $5 a gallon for my gas right now. The gas tax is crazy here. The cost of everything is crazy here. It's creating this giant rift between the very wealthy and the middle and the lower class, because there's very little middle class left. It's so difficult to do that. The things they're doing, and even the unemployment. The unemployment benefits that have been going out during COVID, they're saying that California's shares of fraudulent EDD claims are in the $42 billion plus range.
Unbelievable. That's
just, the numbers are astronomical, and these are our tax dollars, and that makes me ill. I pay a huge state income tax here. It's ridiculous. They're talking about like taxing even more for people who if you have a certain amount of wealth, even if you leave here, the next 10 years you can be taxed. I mean, it's just stuff that's insane to me, and people are just kind of letting it go.
Well, that's why Joe Rogan left, right?
That's why Joe Rogan left. That's why anybody who has any worth, any wealth would get out, because your freedoms are being erased and brought down and down and down. I'm just against that. So I would have a big fight on my hands. Even our forest management is horrific. The amount of water that comes down in the rainwater that comes down in California, we're a desert, right? Where Southern California has a desert. The rainwater that comes down here, 93% of it runs right back into the ocean. It's not reservoir. It's not cared for. Wow. The whole joke with the Delta smelt up in the San Joaquin Valley, stuff like that just doesn't make sense to me, and I would do everything in my power to change that. Would I work as governor? I don't know. Would I do it? I would certainly consider it if I felt I could win and be effective.
Well, for whatever my very minimal opinion, however extent it matters, I think that you should try to go for it, because, hey, maybe you're the next Ronald Reagan, and then I could selfishly say I had a president of the United States on my show. I don't care whether you run or not. It's so that I can brag about it. That's all that matters. Yeah, you understand? Okay. Last question. You mentioned earlier, the movie that you're starting to shoot next, and so that was an opportunity to promote that. Are there any other projects or things that you'd like to promote as we wrap this up, Dean?
Well, I think people don't realize that I've made documentaries in the recent past, and one of them was the Armenian genocide documentary, Architects of Denial. As thinkers, and I think there's a lot of thinkers that watch you, I would love for them to take a look at that. As a history major from college, it's something that I think is an important work. It's more important than that episode of CSI that I did. So I would love for people to look at that. And I have another one that came out last year. We won an Emmy for it.
Nice.
It's called Eight Among Us. It deals with the rise of anti-Semitism here in the United States, Canada, and Europe, and some of the reasons for that. The reason we made the Hate Among Us was it sort of sparked. It was a natural progression to come from the Armenian genocide, which in many ways sort of led to the Holocaust. And Hitler was talking about his final solution. He said, and I don't know the exact quote, but he said, after all, who remembers the Armenians? Because that was a perfect textbook way to go. to commit a genocide and just wipe it under the rug and deny and deny and deny. And Turkey, the government of Turkey, has done that to this day. And it's awful. And I know your wife is Armenian, Lebanese. She would love nothing more than to have that recognized, the genocide recognized. Fortunately, Joe Biden is the one thing that I can say.
I was going to say the same thing. We have to be fair. He's the one who did. Yeah, exactly.
It's the only one. I thought I was going to get President Trump to do it. I lobbied Congress and the Senate, both, and had a lot of conversations with a lot of politicians and pushing for it. I was happy it got done. There are political reasons. The only reason it wasn't done before is political reasons. Joe Biden did that, and I'm very happy he did. And that's the one thing that I will give him credit for so far. But I want people, if people do go and watch this, I would really be these two documentaries. I would be very happy because they mean a lot to me.
Wonderful. You are a cold lemonade on a hot summer day. To speak to you is having a cold lemonade. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Stay on the line for a second so we could say goodbye offline. Such a pleasure meeting you, Dean, and I will definitely take you up on your lovely invitation to visit with you in Malibu so that we can go and hang out with Seth Rogen in a few months. Cheers, buddy.